Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi.
Welcome to Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi. How are you all doing today? Today, I have with me Leo Aspite. Leo Aspite has a background in engineering leadership, and it is a global leadership that he has experienced across 5 continents, from startups, SMEs, and large global corporate teams. We have so much to talk about, Leo. There is a lot of things to discover from you. As the owner of the alternative board Gosford, he brings over 25 years of experience in senior management, business ownership, leadership, startups, and mentoring. He is passionate about helping business owners identify both challenges and opportunities, working together to create sustainable solutions that drive success. I love the word sustainable. He is he believes that the most valuable resource a business owner can access is the collective wisdom of others. So true. In his board meetings, non-competing businesses come together in a unique, transformative environment. And it's more than just strategy, it's about collaboration. By sharing challenges, successes, and insights, business owners learn from each other's experiences, they avoid pitfalls, and they build a sense of community. The alternative board is a trusted partner and is driven by the chance to help business owners achieve both their personal and business goals. Facilitating and coaching brings him immense pleasure and satisfaction. The alternative board offers business owners access to knowledge usually available only to large corporations. With the alternative board's proven systems, he helps clients tackle challenges and seize opportunities, navigating complex decisions and uncovering new possibilities for their businesses and themselves. Leo, we have a lot to talk about today. And let me start by asking you the question on your experience in senior management, business ownership, and leadership and startups. So the entire, you know, gamut of corporate experience that one can have.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Dr. BB, for having me on your show. It's a real privilege, and I'm really looking forward to our chat. I was just listening in on all of that background, and it just makes me sound very old. So I'm just, but anyway, along the way we've learned a few things, and like you said, I've worked in many different areas, so it's experience comes by living life, right? And I've been very fortunate that I've actually experienced lots of different life, not always positive, sometimes with really big challenges. But through those challenges comes opportunity, and maybe at the time it doesn't feel like that, and so I had startups in my own life with business early in the piece, where I started my own business very young, and multiple times. And then I've worked for corporates where, worked internationally across 5 continents, leading large engineering teams, doing large projects, and that style of leadership. And then also medium-sized business where, you're trying to achieve very specific goals, and your skills in leadership are very spread out into multiple areas of the business, not just in a one focused area like it is in a corporate, for example. So all of these type of leaderships, Dr. BB, is that it means you have to adapt. Right, that's the reality. Whether it's in one style of business or a corporate or a small company or working for yourself as a sole trader, the key ingredient is you have to adapt. And so leadership is not given, actually, it's taken, so whatever that opportunity looks like, the leadership will rise by taking advantage of what is there, what the objective is, and how you can influence, those goals, So that's what I learned. I learned to be adaptive. I learned to say no to virtually nothing. So it gave me all these experiences, and I reflect back, and it was some of those experiences weren't great, and some of those experiences, have helped form me to who I am today. And I'm always learning, lifelong learner. So yeah, that's my experience with leadership across many different types of business platforms.
Fantastic. That's a lot of depth and a lot of rich experience that we are now going to start breaking piece by piece to understand how it happened all together. So we'll just start breaking it up. When did it first begin? When did you realize that you had leadership in you?
As a child, I was very shy, so, and I realized by being very shy, I was missing out on so much. So then I became a shy young engineer. And then I realized I was missing out on much, because I wanted to do so much with this life. And so I made a conscious decision in my early 20s that I was going to change my shyness. And so I decided I was going to be more extroverted or more open to how the world works rather than me sitting very quietly in a corner going about my work. And one of the things I did, and because I wanted to get into management, and I had lots of ambition, but I didn't have any skills or have anything naturally that would lead me to these areas. So I had to, someone said that you have to face your fears head on. So I decided that at 21, I would face my fears head on. And one of the things I did is I was working full time, and then I got offered to work as a teacher, in a college part time. And my fear of people was huge, to the point where I was physically sick, if I had to get up in front of large crowds of people and stuff. But I knew that if I could overcome the fear, I could then transform that into my everyday working life. So I took on this role, and every class that I taught on the weekends, I would be physically sick outside before the class. I would be so sick, vomiting and you name it. It was terrible. And I even thought, why am I doing this to myself? But then after 1 month, I stopped vomiting. Then after 2 months, because I knew my content, I knew my stuff, it was actually okay. And then then my students started to like what I was delivering, and I got a lot out of that. And then all of a sudden, I realized that I've done enough of it now that I've overcome my fear. And I learnt that lesson right there to chase. You can transform into something you need to chase the success that you're in life. And for me, that was a defining moment. And then from there, I ended up in leadership within the company I was working for, because now I had that confidence that I can transform into whatever I needed to for the roles that I had. It was a very big moment. And I was very lucky because I had a beautiful wife who believed in me. And then with that belief, I had the courage, to transform and to change. And now I speak in front of many people. I've been a keynote speaker at events, and I look back and I go, how did I get here? Because that would never be me, But then, one day I woke up and I was addressing a large audience as a keynote speaker at the Crown Casino in Melbourne, and I was just shaking my head, going, "Wow, how life can change." And it was all from making this decision at 21 that I would face my fears. So
Lovely.
there's a story I haven't told anyone, I don't think so.
Oh, lovely. Because there are so many people out there who have to take conscious, intentional decisions to be able to grow beyond what their limitations or what they perceive as their limitations,
Yeah.
and then face it and then move ahead. And that one perception that they decide to change intentionally actually, opens the world to them in so many ways. So let's start with, now you were a young engineer and you graduated, then what happened?
So then I was working hard, and then I realized, I had some ambition, and so I wanted to get some more experience. So I worked for a couple different companies, and and then I realized that, maybe I wanted to have a career in management, and so then I figured out, what do I need to do with myself that makes me lean towards a manager. So I did the courses, did a course in leadership and frontline management. But that's not enough. Doing a course doesn't qualify you. What qualifies you is the ability to lead people, to influence people, and get the best out of people. And so I started to use those skills about being more outward, with the people that I work with. And so I initially started to get some respect, in the workplace, because I was a good engineer, but I hadn't really learnt how to lead people. I could lead myself, but I couldn't lead, hadn't had those skills. So I started to volunteer for stuff. I put my hand up for most things. So one particular company, I started there, and the first day on my job, I worked there as a contractor for 3 months, and they really liked me. They offered me a permanent position. And the first day I was permanently employed, they had me on a plane to China to go lead a project, So I was in the deep end, and I was the site manager on this site in China. And, I'd never done that before. I never even not even, especially not in a foreign country where English it's not the first language. So it was really a struggle for me, because it was really in the deep end. And then, I just broke it down into small things. I go, don't panic. They're just people. They've got different cultures. And then I had to learn how to communicate in other ways, with drawings and translators and written. And so I just broke everything down into the little things that I needed to do so I could be of use to that group of people. And then, lots of fear, but, day by day, just by breaking it down and communicating, I got good at it. And then, they came back from that site, and it was a very successful project. I already knew the design part, and knew I was a good design engineer, but in the leadership part, I never really had that experience. So I learned some new skills, and then I learned that I could do this. If you can do this on an international project, you can do almost anywhere, So I started to take responsibility for my own leadership. And then I started to go, well, what do I need to do now? So I went and did a course, like I mentioned before, that teaches all the theory and the concepts of how leadership works. And then I had a tremendous opportunity with the company that I was working with that allowed me to grow into a leader. So first I became the engineer, then the engineer that went to site and led small work teams, to the engineer that led sections of the company, to the engineer that became the departmental manager, to the engineer that became the group manager, and then the global manager. It's in very senior roles. But it all started with me just taking responsibility and having courage to go out there and do something. It starts with the little steps, and so I reflect back into me as a young engineer, just learning, but being brave enough to take those first steps. And, you really don't know how well you're going to go. But if other people believe in you, then sometimes that's enough. It's a starting point. If they see something in you until you see something in you, then that's a good start, right? So I felt safe enough that I had really good senior engineers around me that were guiding me, mentors, that really sort of build a pathway for me around me, and they had my best interest at heart. And then what I gave back in return was I filled those roles, filled the roles that they were looking for in those businesses. So those early days were very crucial in developing the leadership.
So I'll ask you here that as you were growing from, the engineer being an engineer and then growing steadily into the organization and into a global role, what were the changes that you found in yourself?
Yeah, so it was very difficult when a family comes along, because if you start in the beginning, you're by yourself and you only have to think about yourself. So there's nothing else to consider. So if you want to be sent overseas or whatever that looks like, that career looks like, it's actually okay, because you have all the information, you make a decision. But when you have a family, it's a different scenario. So I had a role that was really global. And even when I've had businesses, where I'm away a lot from the family, it was very, very difficult. So it was really difficult to find the balance between your personal life and what the roles required, and it really showed this in 2012. I lost my wife, she passed away with cancer, and I had 3 little boys at home, and I had this role looking after 40 staff and a global role, and living in another country. And it really was difficult. It really made me re-look at what I wanted out of life and how my future is going to look like, So everything that I knew up until that point went out the door, because it was life changing. And I had to learn to survive, to grieve, to survive, and then reinvent us, and that was leadership in itself, is to reinvent into something new, and that's what we did. It took us a long time, but that's what we did. Those key things that happen to you in life will define you. They define who you are, and it's how you respond. And leadership is like that. It's how you respond to what's in front of you. So yeah, that's the challenges in that part of my life.
So, okay, so we have reached till the corporate life and the global thing. So from there, when did you start your startup?
Yeah, so I had a startup just before that. I missed that part of the story, but I had one for about 10 years when I started my family. And, I had a business that was going like a consultancy business, was going really well. Things were trucking on, and I thought, oh, this is going to be great, because I have a combination of lifestyle and I have earning good money and I'm serving clients. And then all of a sudden in 1 year, industry went really bad, So out of those 5 clients that I had, 3 of them went broke, and then 2 didn't have any work. And then that led me to the thought of maybe I should take a job, go back to a corporate role. And that's exactly what happened. So in the startup, what I learned was I had to learn how to be accountable to everything, because I had to do every role. I had to do sales and marketing. I had to deliver the work. I had to be payroll. I had to be, financial, cash flow, all these things that business owners have, especially at the startup phase. You have to learn every one of those, because, you're it. You're going to be doing everything, until the business grows to a certain point. So I had to learn a lot of things that I'd never done before. And so it was a challenge, to survive. And but yeah, we did really well out of it. And then, like I said, the whole industry changed, and I had to adapt again. I had to go, right, this is here now. What are we going to do about it? And back at that time, the best decision was to take some contract work, and then that led me back into corporate work. And that journey started, and the chapter of that startup business finished about after 8 years. Yeah.
Okay. So, you have been in the engineering world
Yes.
all through, even now. Is it only engineering firms, or now is there a diversity in the kind of firms that are, that you work with?
No, it's pretty open. I thought I'd only be working with engineering firms, but the reality is all businesses have these type of problems. It's not unique to an engineering business. It's just they're problems that business owners have. And so the beautiful thing is I get to work with every industry, and because they have very much the same problems, whether it's in, time, whether it's in staff, whether it's in money, whether it's in vision or strategy or even exit, they all seem to have the same sort of themes. So even though I started with, I could help engineering businesses, in reality I found very quickly that I can help every business, and it wasn't unique to one industry, because we're not focused on the technical side. We're focused on the business performance side. That makes
Right.
sense. Yeah.
Okay. So when you were working only with the engineering
Yep.
industry, at that time, how many women were there in that industry? Or how many women were you working with?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because I did see we were a very good company for the openness, and so you got to cast your mind back to the early 2000s, what Australia looked like in that space. But we had female engineers. We did, because we were open-minded. We had a lot of collaboration with the universities, and they would send us graduates, to work with. And so we just chose whoever was the right graduate, and if that graduate was, an Australian or an overseas person or a male or a female, it didn't matter, because it was all about the talent, and it wasn't about anything else. And through that process, I had to learn this myself, by the way. When I employed people, and I employed lots of people, I had to put my hat on to make sure that I was transparent in that area. And it took me a little while, because some of the people, engineers I was employing, they were from areas of the world that I never even knew anything about, or that the world prejudges, So it was really difficult for me initially, and I had to correct myself and say, just look at the talent, just look at the talent. And so I learned a really big lesson in leadership there, around that. And so, yeah, the answer was we did have female engineers, not a lot, but we had a few, maybe 15%, were females. Yeah, and some were good, some were bad. It didn't, it's like anything, some are, it's just, but we're quite open to, engineering's really been male dominated for forever. So it was really a big deal, changing to this open-minded model. And then we found that there was, a couple good ones and a couple bad ones, and we just work like with everybody else. You work, and you find, the talent, and so that's kind of what we did. So it was a really good environment, because we're an international company, and so we had international values, which meant that we didn't just look at local people. We hired people from overseas. We sponsored people. We looked at males and females. We looked at old people, young people. And what we try to do is extract where the value was in all of that. And so what it done for us is it gave us a bigger thinking tank than what you traditionally has happened. And it helped us a lot. And because we were international, it wasn't a big deal for us, you know. If anything, we hardly had any Aussies working. I was one of very few.
Oh,
Everyone was from somewhere else, you know, and it worked because everyone had that sort of mindset around opportunity, you know, and it was a very dynamic experience, and I really enjoyed it, you know, and yeah, we did a lot of great things in those organisations. So it was the people. The people were the key. Yeah.
so one thing that this I'm asking because I work with diversity. So one more question that comes to me is you had this, say, 15% of women who
Yeah.
joined the workforce. Out of them, and some were bad, some were good. That's obvious. All workforce is the same, you know, whether some
Yeah.
of them will be good, some will be bad. So amongst the good ones, how many continued in the engineering industry,
Um,
working in a real hardcore engineering jobs?
yeah, it's a really good question. I don't know the answer exactly, but I'll just tell you what happened in my experiences. So some eventually went off to be parents, you know, and did they come back? I don't know. You know, that's just their choice. Um, so you know that was you know, it's happened a lot. You know, some stayed in the industry and just kept working, you know, working and you know, chased opportunities, and some went, you know, quite high up in companies. Some went off to have their families and then came back, but came back in a more not a casual role, but in a part-time role. You know, that they still wanted to do the engineering, and they still brought value, but they couldn't commit to, you know, 40, 50 hours a week. So, you know, there's these hybrid, and they brought value because they had experience, you know, and so we just work out which tasks, you know, what part of the job would you give to these people, and they did. So, you know, there's no real black and white answer to this. It's just whether you're willing, and where there's value. You know, if there's talent there, then you work it out. You know, you work out where you can use the talent, and sometimes there's limitations on what it looks like in their world. You know, in their world. So yeah, and what I'm saying is also applicable to males. It's not just to females, because in some cases, males are the ones that stay home or they come back as part time, and so it's not like across the board. It's just what we observed at that time. You know. Yeah.
Yep. You yourself have raised three children by
Yeah.
yourself. So you would definitely be one of them to understand what it is to raise a family by
Yeah.
yourself. What are the
Yeah.
things that you had to do that you didn't have to do when your wife was there, and you had
Oh,
to start doing them
yeah.
when obviously she wasn't there anymore?
Yeah. So maybe we need about 6 hours to go through that topic, because there was a million things that she did and so, you know, because we worked as a family and as a team, it was a beautiful thing because we discussed things like family holidays, and I would prioritize things, you know, because I was traveling so much. You know, so we worked how to do this successfully, but as a team, you know. And so my wife was really good at organizing me, you know, like so I could have the career and all of this responsibility, and then we could have the lifestyle that we got from that. So when she passed away, you can imagine I didn't really, you know, even though I did try to do my share at home, but I wasn't there a lot. So I had to learn all the domestic stuff. So the first thing I did is I got a nanny, because I work long hours and I needed someone to be there with the kids. So that was an easy one. And we're in New Zealand at the time when it happened. And so we had a little bit of family there, and they helped us a lot. And then with, you know, that the nanny, who was very generous to us, you know, really gave us a way of doing this, you know. But then I realized, you know, I couldn't do what I did and be a full-time dad. I just realized that that's not possible. So I had to go, this part of my career is over. I had to make a call, because, you know, I had to be present. You know, it's not just being financially present, but those boys needed me as they became teenagers, and all of that stuff. They really needed me. So I needed to reinvent myself. And so I left corporate, And then I ended up becoming a business development manager for an engineering company, which meant that I worked from home 3 days a week at that point. And so I wasn't traveling as much, and it really helped the kids because they could physically see me, they could talk to me, and that was a decision I had to make because the pathway wasn't great. The pathway of supporting a family with not being present, it just won't work. It doesn't matter how good your kids are, it just didn't work. They needed support, and I needed to be there. So after 3 years, I left the corporate world. And then I went into a medium-sized company, 70 staff, and then I became a part owner in that business. And then from that business, it allowed me to be at home more with the kids. It gave me more access. And of course, I had lots of people around me supporting. And then also, it was a pathway back to Australia because we were going to open up a division in Australia. And so it meant that, I became the MD of the Australian division. And then it meant that I could come back to Australia because I had aging parents as well. So what it did is it allowed me to chase some of my vision and dreams from a career point of view, but remodel it in a way that allowed me to be a better dad, a bit more accessible. And so I did. And the kids appreciated it. They saw me a lot more. We reinvented. We worked out how to do, family. I had to learn a few skills, cooked a few meals and washed clothes, and I had people to help me there. But I did a lot of things that I never did much of because my late wife was just phenomenal, and she just let me focus on what I had to do. Now I have to do many more things, and I had to learn how to do that, but in an effective way that allows me to earn money, allows me to be a dad, allows me to be happy. All of these things that you got to juggle, and that at an age where I was already 45 years old. You talk about teaching an old dog new tricks. Like I had to learn all these things at that age, because my kids needed that, and so it was very difficult. It was a difficult period of 15 years. We know it was a season of 15 years, and in that season we got tested a lot, and lots of challenges, lots of things that weren't great, but we survived, we learnt, we adjusted, and then we somehow got through to this point, where they're three happy boys. They struggled and they suffered a lot, by losing their mum very early. But they're great young men now, and they found a pathway for themselves. And so my relationship now with the kids is more about friendship than being a dad, because they come to me for advice, but they don't need me to tell them to brush their teeth or anything like that. That journey's all complete.
Yeah.
It's,
So, who amongst your three
yeah,
young men, right? So,
yeah.
who amongst your three men are very similar to you?
The eldest by far. So the eldest one was the blessing because he was very compliant. He was very studious. We're at the top school in New Zealand in Auckland Grammar, and I didn't have to do much with him. He just studied. He did everything that you would expect him to do, without any trouble. He didn't no cheek, no challenges. He ended up becoming an engineer like me. He's a robotics engineer. He's much smarter than I am, and so he's got a career in that, and he's doing really, really well. He's very self-managed. I don't have to do much with him, so. But then the other two were totally different. Much more work, much more challenges, much more, like I had a lot more to do. And so I was really lucky that he was my eldest boy was that, because what it done is it gave me some relief, that I knew he would look after them. I knew he would do the right thing every time, like he was really good. He helped me a lot. And then, then I just had to focus on the other two a lot more because they needed me more. Yeah, so very fortunate that the eldest one was the one that was the one that sort of led us a little bit. He led the other two in the right direction. And yeah, he's a lovely man, and he really, really helped a lot. He just helped me a lot. It was no fluke that he had all of this in him. And it's sort of when he lost his mum, he shone, like he had to step up. At 14, he had to step up and really be a man at 14. It's really difficult, and especially when you're used to your mum doing those things, and he had to become a leader in his own right. And so like with all that hardship came beautiful, things that they learnt, because of necessity. And we all did that. We all had hardship, and we ended up with all of these experiences and learnings that have served us today. We didn't choose it, but we responded to the call of leadership at a time where we didn't have a choice. You had to either stand up or fall down.
That's right.
And my boys did that as well, right? Not just me. It was
Yep.
not just me, it was them as well in their journey. And at times they were stronger than me. At times they were the ones carrying me because I had too much on my plate.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think your elder boy definitely would have been the one to tell them that, this is how it has to be because I'm
That's
doing
it.
it like a role model.
Yeah.
And so then they would follow through. That's the beauty of having, one of your children who turns out to be the kind of a boy or a child that you want in your life, and then the others can also follow through with that. But with this, when you were telling me this, I visualize the gold, when gold is mined and then it's made pure, it
Yeah.
goes through high temperatures, and it is said that it goes through fire 7 times to be able to become the purest gold that we have. So that's what I think happened in your case,
Beautiful.
where you
Yeah.
went through, the fire
Yeah.
so many times to be able to
Beautiful.
become what you are today. With
Beautiful
this,
analogy.
I'm sorry.
Beautiful analogy.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to
So,
use that. I'm going to share that one with the kids.
so with this, the one question that rose, comes to my mind is, how did your leadership differ from the one with the global corporate, then with startups? Because there must be different dynamics altogether in these very places. And with the medium-sized ones, how was your leadership different?
So there's all different experiences, but realistically, the biggest leadership challenge was in my last business, where I was the MD. I was responsible for everything. It was a startup in Australia, so I had the startup experience, which I already had some experience. Then it was we had some success, and then it was a scaling engineering business, so I already had experience with scaling. We bought a workshop, so there was an acquisition, and I already had acquisition experience from the corporate world. So, but in this one company, I had to use all these leadership skills that I had developed over the years because that's what was required. And then, I had to also plan my exit and my succession, because I knew with the business being in Melbourne and I live on the Central Coast, that I wasn't going to be able to do this for more than 5 or 6 years. And I made a plan, and I exited the business from day one with that plan in mind. And so it taught me how to develop people, how to put systems and processes, how to elevate your staff, how to empower your staff. All of these things that you hear about in leadership, that was the place in that 6 years where I applied the most of it, because I had to exit the business. And so I had to do it properly. I can't just one day we'll do this. We had to do it. And if I didn't do it, then I would be leaving that business destroyed, So the whole idea was to try to build some succession. Did I do everything right? Of course not. I didn't do everything right, but most things I did right. And the intent was always right, and sometimes you start with an idea down this path and you have to adjust it because it's not going to work, or you learn more about it, or there's too much effort or not enough effort, whatever it is, but the goal stays the same. The plan is in sand and the goal is in concrete. Once you understand that, sometimes you have to adjust, you have to review, and you've got to adjust. And so I had those abilities, so the business that I'm in now, I've got the same vision. The same vision is I could exit at any time. I'm building a business that I can exit with and sell, even if I want to. I've got a business that it's not only about me. It's about the people that I'm with. And so for me this time round, it's a lot easier because I know exactly what I want to achieve out of this. And the joy of helping businesses with business owners, because I know exactly how they feel. It's a lonely place. There's big decisions to make all the time, staff challenges, money challenges. It's really hard to sleep at night, when you have all of this constantly with you. So I totally understand that. So for me, it gives me a lot of joy because I've been in their shoes. I've been exactly where they are, and I know how to help them get through that, so, and the peer advisory boards, that's just more knowledge around those topics. So it's pure joy now. It's joy. I tell people that over the next 3 years, and this is accountability, right, for myself, that I'm going to help 100 businesses on the Central Coast prosper, right? So I'm up to 20, or just over 20, but I'm going to be accountable to that because my vision for this business is to help those businesses prosper so they'll employ our children, right? And so it's a very simple thing, but some of those businesses will employ the youth. They'll employ local people, and so then the business becomes sustainable, and then it becomes an even better area to live as families, as couples, as individuals. So that will be my contribution in this next phase. That's what I'm trying to my vision for what I want to do.
So that's your legacy.
That will be my legacy, right? So that's why I'm telling you about it now, because it makes me accountable to my legacy that I'm planning.
So the alternative board.
Yeah.
How do you get the members for this board?
Like any business, you got to do the sales and the marketing, you got to do the execution, you got to do the financials. It's no different to any other the businesses that I've been involved in. And so you just got to get good at that. So I tend to, like any business, when I was in engineering businesses, I used to hang around where the companies that needed engineering services would play, whether it's in a networking group or in whatever, in factories. That's where I was. Here, I'm with business owners, wherever they are. So, and in just real simple discussions, they find out, what you do, and they go, oh, wow, I could use some help, or, I'm really frustrated. And then we just started a discussion, and it's really quite simple. Then we work out, whether they're the right niche for us and we're the right niche for them, and then we start the relationship. So it's no different than any other business. It's just, it's a service that we know a few things. We use the collaborative effort of the other members, and we hold everybody accountable, which is the big one, because a lot of businesses are not accountable to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then
That's so true.
they get stuck, right? They get stuck in where they are because then they're too scared, or they just don't know how to do that. And so we help them with all of that. And like I know people that have been around these peer advisory boards for years. That's what they use as their support arm to help them build the business. I sit on a board in Parramatta in Sydney. Those guys have been together for 5 years. They even go on holidays together. Like it's an amazing thing, because once you have trust and once you have the people who have been in your shoes, there's a beautiful, beautiful collective spirit amongst those people. And so they value it, and I value them. And it's a great relationship. It's a safe place. They can talk about their business every month. Yeah. So
You just brought up the word trust, and I was just thinking about this too, because I think to be able to do something together, one of the most important things is to collaborate. But to collaborate, one of the most important thing is to first have trust. If you don't have trust, you can't collaborate. What were the things that you do to build that trust?
right. So it's very simple. We get 6 to 10 non-competing businesses in a room. They all sign NDAs. So they're not going to share sensitive information outside of that room. And so you have to have a platform where there's some structure that allows the safety of a business owner. So once they see that for themselves, they see it with their eyes. From day one, it's like that. And so trust is built by action, by providing an environment that they can see, that they feel comfortable enough to share everything, even numbers, and feelings, because sometimes there's tears in these discussions because it's really big stuff in their life, and they've got no one else to really share that with. So
Totally.
that's the honor and the responsibility that they're putting onto me, right? So it's an honor. I'm serving them in an environment that I'm providing a place and knowledge, right, that they can be 100% authentic. And I don't undervalue that in any way. This is the secret of what we're doing. It's if you can provide that platform, then these businesses they prosper because they can get to the core issues of what's holding them back.
That's so true. I think being authentic is very, very important to building trust. At least that's what my experience tells
Yeah,
me.
it is. Yeah.
So, what would be the one message that you would like to give young leaders, young aspiring leaders, and young leaders?
Face your fears earlier, because you can hold on to these fears and then your life will pass you by. You don't know how good you really are until you test yourself, right? Surround yourself with the best people you can find, whether it's family, whether it's business, whether it's colleagues. Find the best ones and surround yourself with those people who are going to edify you, uplift you, coach you, the ones that are going to bring the glory with you in your journey. And those people there, find out who knows how to do what you want to do. So if you want to be a good tennis player, find out the best tennis player in the neighborhood and go practice with them, because then your skills will lift up, right? So it's just finding the right people that will support your journey, right? And then whatever that looks like, and then be brave, be bold, face your fears, like I had to at a very young age, because if I didn't do that at 21 when I did that teaching thing, right, probably would not be the same person, because I would have let fear control me. And then with fear, you don't get the courage. You don't have the things that you do. And the best time to do that is when you're young,
So,
right?
catch them young and get
Catch them
things done.
young, be brave, right? Surround yourself with good people so you don't go too far away, and be accountable. Be accountable. If you say you're going to do something, you do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's very important, I think. Uh, how would you want my audience and my listeners to get in touch with you?
There's lots of ways, but the easiest way is just to find Leo Aspite on LinkedIn and direct message me. happy to have a conversation, happy to share what we do. We've got lots of amazing stuff going on. We've got just great people. We've got people who do specialize in non-for-profit, and we've got people who specialize in acquisitions. We've got lots of experience. So just get them to reach out on LinkedIn. And then that's probably the best way, because on LinkedIn you'll be able to look at the profile, and then from there you can book a call, or you can go on our website. You get all the information that you want. But please reach out. I'm happy to have a chat. I am dead serious about helping these businesses. I'm really looking forward to the journey ahead. So it's been great chatting with you, Dr. BB.
Thank you so much. I was about to say the same thing, that this kind of wisdom that today has been an amazing. This session has been amazing, because when you get people who are from a particular background and a very specialized background, and when you're working with technology or STEM, something like that, and from there, how do you then build yourself and become a people leader, and how do you grow beyond that, are lessons which are a little different from people who are from non-STEM background, or people who are from different backgrounds, which is not engineering or medical or STEM. So this was amazing, because I got the wisdom, I got your wisdom too. That is fantastic. And thank you so much for being with us.
I really appreciate the opportunity, and I wish you all the best. And hopefully your viewers get something out of this, but happy to for them to reach out, and we can have more discussion. So wish you all the
Yes,
best.
same here. I hope that they do get something really out of this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much once again.
Thank you. Bye.